Cold Creek isn't really a trail on its own, and it won't show up on any maps as Cold Creek. It's a local name for a section of a larger trail system called the Tarbell Loop, which I'll cover in more detail in a later video. Regardless of whether it's officially its own trail, it gets more rubber on its tread than any other section of the Tarbell Loop. It's called Cold Creek because it roughly follows the course of Cold Creek up the northern flank of Larch Mountain, which is an old shield volcano about 10 miles east of Vancouver, Washington. You get to Cold Creek by following your GPS navigator to Larch Correction Center. Larch Correction Center isn't your destination, it's just the most likely nearby landmark to be in your GPS. If you're coming from the Paddon Parkway exit, after about a half hour of intricate turns and curvy road, you'll come to an intersection called Four Corners. Go left at this intersection. Another 1.5 miles of curvy road downhill will lead you to the Correction Center. With the Correction Center on your left, you'll see that the road turns into gravel. Continue for about a mile or so on this gravel road. You'll come to a bridge and a left-hand curve in the road. At the top of the hill, at the end of this curve, is the parking area, complete with vault toilets and parking for around 50 cars. You'll notice this is labeled Yakult Burn Trailhead. This whole area is referred to by that name, as there was a giant fire in this area in 1902 that burned around 500,000 acres of forest in the southwest Washington Cascades. It caused huge rock slides, and it's the reason the mountains here have so many bare spots that afford expansive views of the Cascades as well as the Portland-Vancouver metro area. Anyhow, this parking area is nice. Watch the video closely for the next minute, as it's not readily obvious to the uninitiated where the trail starts. There is a visible trailhead to your right across the road that says Bell's Mountain. Don't take that trail. It's a lovely trail, and I'll talk about it in another video, but it's not the trail you want to ride today. Instead, the actual trailhead you want is between that yellow gate and the road you just drove in here on. Once you pass the sign, take the immediate left up the hill and the immediate right after that. If you get to the gravel road, you've gone too far. Ride about 200 yards on an old road grade until you come to another intersection. Continue forward up the hill. The trail will gradually climb for about 1.5 miles. This converted road grade is mostly squirrel head-sized rocks and packed clay. After passing through a few clear cuts and over some streams, you'll come to another intersection. There is often a fire ring here. The locals call this area the Toilet Bowl, in reference to an inside berm near here that used to have drainage issues before we fixed it with a larger culvert. At this point, there are two choices, steep or steeper. The climb on your right is slightly less soul-crushing than the climb to your left. The climb to your left is a mile of leg-burning terror grinding straight up the fall line unbroken by switchbacks with the possibility of dude bros on enduro and downhill bikes bearing down on you at any second. Keep your ears open. The climb on the right is a little over a mile with more switchbacks and also the possibility of dude bros on enduro or downhill bikes bearing down on you at slightly slower speeds at any second. Keep your ears open. I suggest you go right. It follows the creek and it's much prettier. The climbing is steep, tight, and punchy all the way up. It's very likely that if you're merely human, you'll need to get off the bike a few times, especially when it's raining and slippery, or in late summer when it's dusty and slippery. The first bridge you'll come across is this brand new bridge. The Cold Creek mountain bikers are very proud of this bridge. It's a beautiful bridge, and it took 5 years of advocacy to cajole the Department of Natural Resources into putting this bridge in. Cross all 3 bridges, and you'll find yourself intersecting with a road. This is the same road that has the yellow gate across it next to the lower parking area. This road crossing is referred to as 5 Corners by the locals. You'll see across the road that the trail continues up the hill through a clearcut. The locals call this section of trail the clearcut. It's full of grin-inducing, linked-up machine-built berms formed out of clay interspersed with rocks and stumps. The clearcut is absolute bliss when the moisture level is just right, but be careful during the drier months as it gets covered in a layer of ball-bearing sized pebbles that tend to make wheels go sideways. The bottom of the clear cut represents 1,200 feet of elevation gain. Keep climbing if there's no snow blocking the way. The top of a typical after-work evening ride is just another 1.5 miles with 800 feet of elevation gain ahead. The forest transitions from Douglas fir and mountain hemlock to noble fir with the gain in elevation and changes in management designations, becoming darker, quieter, and more intimate. There are still some pretty significant gut punch climbs as rocky outcrops and tight switchbacks become more numerous. Do not be discouraged. Just keep climbing. The trail eventually becomes so steep and loose most riders will need to dismount. This means the top is very near. Another 500 yards of pushing leads to a large rock slide with a spectacular view. This is the picnic table, which is typically the evening workout destination for most local riders from Clark County who come here on weeknights. Take a breather and drink in the view. It doesn't seem possible that this is here, so close to the city. Keep in mind, while standing here, that the majority of the population only sees a view like this maybe once or twice a year, and you just rode your bike here on a weeknight. Never forget how lucky you are. This isn't the end of the ride, but it's a good place to stop if bedtime is looming. If it's a day off, there is much more trail system to enjoy up above the rock slide. There will be a later video detailing the trail above this point as well as the rest of the Tarbell system. After enjoying the view, point the rubber side of the bike back downhill. Soon after entering the trees, there is a little split. Go left for a huck fest, go right to keep the rubber on the dirt. This section is steep, rocky, and loose. It becomes obvious that Cold Creek has gotten a lot of digger love over the last 15 years, yet it retains a rustic feel that more developed trails forsake for accessibility and durability. It just has a certain unrefined rowdiness to it that's hard to get on a sanctioned trail system, and yet here it is. The type of dirt in this part of the southern Washington Cascades, combined with the specific topography and history of this mountain, allows for features and steepness that wouldn't hold up on a lot of other trail systems. This trail is fun, but it does trend more toward rocks, gravel, and clay than loam. It's also just beautiful. It's the kind of trail you want to ride on a misty Pacific Northwest day when the dirt's just right. It's the kind of place where you never really know exactly how fast you can ride it because you keep getting distracted by the woods, by the smell of dirt and hemlock, the changing views, and the sound of eerily close gunfire and the call of the forest grouse. When you get to the bottom of the clearcut after all the machined berms, you'll see that you have the option of going to the left or to the right. The right is very fast and very steep, but also very open. If you came up from the left, you already know what that looks like. Hopefully you were taking note of all the features you would be riding as you came up the trail. For today, go left. And when you get to the second bridge on your way down, make sure you slow down before approaching the bridge. This bridge is called Scary Bridge because it's slick, very slick. Don't brake on Scary Bridge. Do not steer on Scary Bridge. Do not try in any way to affect a change in your velocity while on Scary Bridge. Just point the bike and be ready to brake and turn the second you hit dirt again, because that berm on the other side is more like a wall and it comes up quickly. After crossing the next bridge and riding a flat and muddy section, you'll come back to the intersection referred to earlier as the toilet bowl. Go left. Stay off your brakes as you're going to need the momentum to carry you around the right-handed berm and up to the section of Cold Creek you didn't see on your way up. This section is rowdy fun, and it gets a lot of digging attention. There are jumps and features everywhere if you keep your eyes open. Everywhere there should be a kicker, there's a kicker. Everywhere there needs to be a berm, there's a berm. It's still rowdy, though, and there are plenty of little climbs and sharp turns to keep you awake and enthusiastic. At every intersection, go down and left. You'll encounter one cool feature after another, all carved out of rock and mineral clay, navigating a challenging rock garden leading to a rustic bridge, then climbing back up, out, and down for a half mile until the trail drops you down a series of 3 small kickers where you'll want to keep your speed up as the trail sweeps left and into 2 small tables with ride-arounds before spitting you out at the bridge on the L1000 road. Turn right on the road and ride 200 yards back up to your car.